All right, what's up, everyone, and welcome to the Outcast podcast. We wanted to add on an extra section for our members Jordan and River because they weren't able to be in the end of the year episode that we did, and we want to let them have an opportunity to share their experiences in the podcast over the time that we've been active and the time that they've been a part of it. So, going into that, question number one: how did you both first get started with the podcast? I feel like River mentioned it already, but if you want to do a quick little rehash, go for it.
Laura, who runs Outreach, has a habit of guilt tripping people into doing things. And I mean that in the best way. Like we all know Laura. People, all of us in the call, we all know Laura.
Yeah,
if you don't know Laura, she's very good at making you feel bad for not doing things.
Yeah.
She's the sweetest person in the world, and I never want to make her unhappy. And so when she's like, River, we think you should join the podcast. It's like, fuck, I'm not going to get to say no. Now I'm glad I didn't, I guess, or whatever. Maybe I like you guys.
Hey,
I
Jordan,
wonder,
how did you get started?
I get involved in the podcast?
How did you? I don't think I remember. Like, what?
Fully two totally different responses.
For those who don't know, I'm the mind behind the madness. This was just an idea that came to me while I was actually doing dishes at my job, because I was like, I wish I had something to listen to.
So you were doing the dishes and you were dishing out an idea.
Yes. Rose, please.
But
please, God, just one time.
I'm sorry, it's terminal. I don't know what to do.
Stay inside.
But I went to Laura,
never.
who is absolutely fucking fantastic.
As much of a guilt as she is really wonderful.
And I said, hey, why don't we do a podcast? We can do the things we do at Outreach so anywhere else can hear it. And she was like, get Ryan. Because for those who don't know, Ryan also has a podcast, Black Myths. Check it out. And it's just kind of history from there.
So then, second question: how did you guys feel on the day like that you first recorded? What thoughts were going through your head? Were you nervous? Were there any mistakes that you made that were there but that no one else really knew about?
You can start this.
I'm like an emotional masochist, so I volunteered to host for my first episode because I have no sense of self-preservation. And I think I've been a performer for theater for a really long time. And so I didn't quite have stage fright, but I did I joined the podcast a couple of weeks before we recorded my first episode. And so I was like, God, what if I say the wrong thing and these people fucking hate me? What if they kick me out because I'm not cool enough? And I was like, if I'm going to dip my toes into the podcasting thing, I might as well just cannonball in. And then we started recording. And I was like, God, I wish I hadn't fucking cannonballed in. Now, in retrospect, I'm really glad I did. But for sure, about 10 minutes before we started recording, I was like, I think I'm going to vomit. I didn't, but I really thought I was gonna for a minute. I'm a big, it doesn't come off all the time on the podcast, but when I'm anxious, I stutter a lot and I get anxious tics. And so I feel like we had to cut a bunch of those out in my first episode because I was terrified of fucking something up. God, I'm not much of a, the most public speaking experience I had before the podcast was presentations in school where no one actually gives a shit about what you're about to say. And so that makes it even worse because no one's listening. I do much better with an engaged audience than a despondent one. And I was like, oh God, what if someone's just putting on the podcast to go to sleep and they're not fucking listening? Oh God, it felt like a PowerPoint in front of my English class all over again. And I was so terrified. But it's been really rewarding. So I guess I'm glad I did it.
With my first episode, my thoughts were I'm going to fuck this up. Something's going to happen and I'm going to screw all this up and I'm going to ruin it for everybody. Because I was a stuttering mess, I didn't know what I was doing because I'm an actor. I'm not a talker like this. So I'm just I was extremely nervous. And one of the mistakes I made, and that you can go back and listen, I put on my gay voice when I was talking about it, and I'm like, now I'm regretting I did that, because then the audience isn't gonna be like, oh yeah, that's them. It's really not. I'm not that, like, hi, how are you doing, like this. I'm laid back. I don't care. I want to inform, but I don't want to look like a cartoon. So yeah.
Okay, so then sort of like continuing on, like after you finished the first episode that you were on, like how did you feel about it?
I was hyped. Like, I was like, oh, we did this. We all did this. Because Rose, you were there.
I was there.
Ryan, you were there. But yeah, we were just, after that episode, I was like, this is gonna be a thing. This is gonna get where it can go. It's gonna take off. And I was pretty much right.
I'm glad to hear your enthusiasm, because having been there, like I also had a positive feeling at the end of it. Because leading up to it, for me, like I know I already sort of went over this in the end of the year episode because I was there for that
Rose,
one.
you had your turn.
Yeah.
Totally kidding.
So like I was like really anxious that I wasn't going to be able to do the podcast because like some of the episodes required a lot of research and work. But like after that episode, I was like, yeah, this is, I think I'm going to enjoy this a lot more than I thought going into it. So I don't know. It's cool to hear that you were hyped about it because you were right. Oh, it's awesome. Love it.
After my first episode, I was definitely like, so I had listened to like 2 of the episodes from the first season first, because I was trying to like get a sense of the form and like what was going on. When I kind of realized that we were doing a part 2 to the very first episode that ever happened on the podcast, by the time we were done with the first episode I recorded, I was like, God, what if it's not as good as the first one? God, what if it's worse? What if people hate this one? What if I sucked?
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt.
No, you're good.
But just like, there's no way that this is a personal pet peeve. I praised a show in the original like episode that I have a lot of beef with now. So like in my eyes, like it was almost definitely better than whatever I was saying back then.
Oh God. Well, and like those things change, right? Like our ideas of good representation. And I think there was part of me, I think too, that was really proud because trans representation in media is something that I've been really passionate about since before I even knew I was trans. Like it's a thing that is a huge deal to me. And so getting to talk about it with other people who are passionate about it was very cool. I was still terrified, just like almost in the way that I was terrified after every opening night I ever did of like, God, what if this is the best show and all of the rest of them are bad? And I feel this awful about this one. But, you know, I think that's a lot of like me dealing with mental illness is like, I have a lot of like self-doubt and this has really helped me with that. Like, God, listening, I remember like refusing to listen back to the episode because I was like, no, it's going to be bad. I know it is. I can't listen to myself crash and burn. I can't do it. And now I'm kind of over that. Thank God. Because when my dad was like, I want to talk about this point that I was like, oh God, that was like 5 weeks ago. I don't remember what we talked about. I got to go listen to the episode. It was a whole thing. But yeah, I for sure still felt really nervous, but I have kind of gotten over that since then.
Mm-hmm. On the topic of listening to yourself on an episode, what were your thoughts and or feelings when you first heard your voice recorded in an episode?
Oh, that's an excellent one because I actually just listened to the trans rap episode like a week ago. I was like listening to it with someone, and because like I was because I'm on T and my voice is actively deepening, like listening back, I was like, oh God. I sound like a prepubescent boy.
But hey,
for sure,
you have something to compare it to.
I do. I've been doing one of those like every month. I'm kind of recording the changes videos. Nothing jarred me more than listening back to my voice on the first podcast episode. I was like, oh my God. And that was like one of my concerns with starting on the podcast before I was like done changing vocally, is like, that's forever. I can't go back and change that once my voice is done cooking. Like, that's on the internet now, and there's nothing I can do about it, which makes me a little bit dysphoric sometimes, but also we said some important shit. And so that is more important than my personal discomfort. And that's that. But yeah, it's for sure like oh God, I sounded like a little itty bitty baby, especially listening back now, knowing what I sound like today.
Mine was like razor blades on a chalkboard. I hated it because of the voice I did. And I'm like, the more episodes we go in, the more confident I feel, so the better my voice sounds. So, and I got a better mic, so that helps. But genuinely, it was very jarring because I never like hearing myself talk. I like hearing myself talk in the moment because it echoes in my head, but I don't like how my voice sounds. But the longer I do this, the more comfortable I become with it.
Mm-hmm. I know that this is mainly just like asking these questions for you guys, but like, I can't remember which episode it was, but I listened to like a significant portion of one of our episodes a couple of weeks ago, and it was weird for me listening to it because I know when we first did the like end of the year episode, my reaction was like, I don't know, it's just my voice, like, you know. And I think that still holds true for me, but my issue is less of how my voice sounds and more of what I'm saying. I noticed that I say like a lot to the point where it's like I say that much, and that really freaked me out. But then like I have a lot of anxiety over if what I'm saying is interesting or whether I feel like it matters. So listening to everyone else talk, I remember feeling anxious, like that what I was saying wasn't as like good as what everyone else was saying, and that was super fucking uncomfortable. But at the same time, it's also like it was literally fine. It's just me being stupid. So that was interesting. I don't know. I just felt like my answer to that question has changed, and this seems like a good opportunity to share it. But to anybody who's listening, sometimes the things you say are stupid, but like everyone has stupid things that they say. Value your voice because it's important. Whether it's like bad or whether it's good, like you need to be able to express yourself. It's so important in being able to grow and accept who you are. So don't devalue yourself. Nah. Okay, on to the next question then. What skills do you feel that you learned and or improved upon by participating in the podcast?
This is my third episode, so I have not had a lot of time to change or improve much. But I am a big like improviser a lot of the time. Like I am really bad with structure. It has always irritated me. Like lists and outlines really bug me for no reason. And it's not like anything personal about like Ryan's outline style. It's just like not how my brain operates. I've gotten a lot better. Well, that's kind of a lie because I fully did it in this episode on accident about like waiting for the questions to be asked instead of just answering them. But I fully did that in this episode. So I guess maybe I'm not much better at that. But like, I think I make very loose when we're doing our outlines for the episode. I make like 3 bullet points for my whole section and then kind of riff from there. Like that's just the way that my brain works. Like if I have the information, I can kind of fully just improv my way through it. I have noticed that Jordan is very much the opposite. And like I have tried to absorb a little bit of that structure that Jordan has in their outline sections so that I am a little less riffy and a little more structured. Because my brain doesn't like that structure and I'm trying to convince it to, and it for sure has been a struggle, but I'm getting better about it. So I want to thank you for that because your notes are so detailed and it's very great to make an example of them.
Yeah, but that's mostly on Ryan. I do structure some bit, but I riff a lot too. Things I've improved on is finding reliable sources because I don't want fake information that'll just cause more harm than good. we're trying to be as transparent as we can be. And it's
transparent. Sorry.
Hardy.
I love
But
it.
yeah, I try and trust my instinct if I can. Like I said, I double think everything. But honestly, I'm trying to build my confidence when I'm talking. Still got a long way to go, but yeah, I feel like I've improved fairly well since my first episode.
I love to hear what you have to say, and I appreciate you being a part of this podcast and sharing your experiences and thoughts. Maybe this is stupid, but now seems a great time to say it. Sometimes when I don't feel confident in believing in myself, the best thing that I can do is to trust in the fact that there are other people who I do believe in and who I do trust, who think that what I have to say matters. So like if
Because
there are
it
any
does.
moments, yeah, because it does. So if there are any moments like you feel like your voice doesn't matter, your voice matters to me. So at the very least, you can find confidence and security in that. You're great. I love you. Don't be afraid to share your thoughts because they're important and we want to hear them. Okay. So just with that little thing said, I want you guys to pick an episode or multiple episodes, if you so prefer, that like you really, really liked, like a favorite, and tell us like why you like it.
I really enjoyed doing the Dave Chappelle episode. That was one that was a huge, like, I talked about this in that episode. If you haven't heard it, go do that. What are you doing? I have been a comedy buff since I was like very young. I was a big fan of Dave Chappelle, and then he started saying transphobic shit and like that, like being able to talk about that on an analytical level with other people who are like with Leo, who is also a comedy buff, was very cool. And Devin was really great to talk to, has been really lovely to us. And that whole conversation was really great. And like being able to talk about stuff that I've been lucky enough on this podcast so far to almost exclusively talk about stuff that I'm incredibly passionate about. Like I am not nearly as animated when talking about things that I'm not hardcore interested in. And that was an episode that like I felt like that had been a thing that had been bugging me for about a month by the time we recorded that episode. And like being able to talk about it was very freeing. And I think we had a very good discussion. Plus, it was something that I could talk to my family members about. Like my dad kind of got me into comedy. That was the first episode of our podcast that he listened to. And so I got to have a really in-depth conversation with him about it, which was very cool. So I really enjoyed, I'd say the Dave Chappelle episode is one of my favorites.
See, this isn't fair because it's like trying to pick my favorite child. I can't do that. But I can give reasons why I like some better. Okay, let's start. Michaela Jones. An interview with Michaela Jones. That was our first ever interview. And she was just wonderful. Amazing person to talk to. Fantastic person. And I just loved hearing from her. Devin. That was an amazing episode. Hearing their poetry just genuinely, it broke my heart, but in a good way. And I absolutely love and adore them. Anti-Semitism, a past hidden in plain sight. I loved seeing Luke so passionate about this because Luke knows his stuff, and that episode was an incredible episode. A relationship with red flags. That is an incredibly wonderful episode too, because I've been giving it to friends who had actually helped a friend break up with their toxic ex, and it's just fantastic that helped. This one was an interview with Venus. It was so amazing to see two parts of my world collide, even though they're very similar. But it just was wonderful talking with them, and that episode will always have a special place in my heart. James Finn, that was an incredible interview too. I'm pretty much going on about every episode we have, and honestly,
the James Finn episode, I was so sad that I couldn't make it to that recording.
Me too.
It was such a good episode. I wanted to be in that recording so bad.
James Finn was so fucking cool to talk to, and as someone who also has like quote unquote radical beliefs, as in just like people should be able to get their basic needs met, and not have to deal with stupid shit. Like you, as far as I can tell, are like the same in that regard. You would have loved talking to him.
Oh god,
very much completely into that stuff. It's great.
I really loved listening. Like I've been better about listening to episodes that I'm not in. I listen to a lot of podcasts, so I'll be real.
I listen to every episode I'm not in because it's easier to listen to.
I've almost caught up, but I
another episode you said Dave Chappelle. That was a really good episode because it was a very serious, not serious, but a very like recent topic of the time. And I love comedy. Robin Williams is my favorite of all time. He is the GOAT, but that blew me out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
And J.R. Jameson. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
That story. His story is incredible to hear. And I just can't. I love every episode, and it's just, I love every episode for a different reason. So I can't exactly choose my favorite.
And you've been here since the very beginning, so like,
all
of these episodes are your kids.
Beginning.
Like it's way easier for me to pick an episode that I was in that's my favorite because I've only been in 2. I'm really excited about some of the ideas that we've been writing down for future episodes, which I'm obviously not going to spoil, but I'm really looking forward to a lot of that.
Yeah, stay listening.
Yeah, for sure. We've got some real good shit in the works.
That is actually right. The Lil Nas X discussion.
Oh yeah.
I can't even talk right now. It's just I'm emotional, and my brain starts running when I get emotional.
Are you gonna cry on the podcast?
No.
Why would you do that? No one cries.
You can't break the rules.
But honestly, every episode is just fantastic. There's some
We've got
that
a really
are
great group.
Yes. There are some that are still like, I don't exactly like the queer representation one as much anymore. But the second one, oh, that's amazing. Whew. My heart hurts now.
We did ask you to pick a favorite child, and you named all of your children. And I really love that.
Yeah. It's just like, you care about this podcast so much. I mean, obviously, you were the person who made it,
how much you love it.
Yeah, but like, I know that I assume everyone else does. We really appreciate your dedication and love that you put into this.
No
and
shit.
Honestly, since this has been a fantastic year, I couldn't pick a better group of friends that I would want to do this with if I tried. So
we're
genuinely,
besties, bro.
I want to thank every cast member we've had, every guest we've had, Melanie, Ryan, and Steven for being there. And Terrell. Yeah. Yes.
Shout out to
thank you, our
editor.
I want to thank all of our cast and crew who has made this just an incredible time. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
And also thank you to people who have stuck with us this whole time.
Technically,
I'm not even one of them. But it's very cool to like be able to be heard on as big a scale as we have. And that's like a huge blessing. Thank you so much.
I also want to thank our audience, because without you, this wouldn't have happened. So thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to us. Listen to young people being young people.
For real.
But
if you've stuck through all of our fuck capitalisms, you're a good one. Thank you for that.
So continuing off with that, as Jordan and River and everyone so wonderfully said, we would like to take this time to thank our loyal listeners for sticking with us with our podcast. It means a lot to all of us. If you want to listen to us more, or if how River said, if you haven't checked out the Dave Chappelle episode, guess where you can check out it and all the other episodes? Oh wow, would you look at that? YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, Deezer, Apple Podcasts. Do it. Go check it out if you haven't. But if you're listening to this episode, what are you doing? You good? Anyway, if you want to interact with us on social media, you can look us up on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you need someone to talk to, you can look up the Trevor Project or Muncie Outreach. And if you need someone to call, or if you're in a situation that's really bad, the suicide hotline is 800-273-8255. We all here care about you, so please take care of yourself. You're important, you're wonderful, and we'll see you in the next one.